Good morning. This is Desiree Dubois, founder of An Empowered Woman and Homework. Homework is where you can live where you work where you live, anywhere in the world. So we provide luxury style homes and we design the bedrooms to be live work suites. So women professionals and entrepreneurs can live full time, part time, or as a drop in. And every Wednesday morning, we meet for coffee and conversation, where we invite women professionals to share their products, their programs, and their services that will enhance our community. So today I'm proud to introduce you to Lynda Evans. She's a master certified coach and she's going to tell us what she does, what she specializes in. Has a combination of so many different modalities that I'll let her share that with you, as well as her real estate interests. So Lynda, good morning. How are you doing today? Uh-oh, you got to unmute.
There we go.
There you
Good
go.
morning, Desiree. Thank you so much for your gracious invitation, um, allowing me to be here. And what a diverse group of women we have. I love it.
Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
amazing. Yes. Who was it? Was it Senway? Are you the Airbnb or the B&B person?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am. Yes,
Well, I
ma'am.
I did that. I came from a really big hospitality industry background, and I actually was the uh, manager of a B&B in uh, Albuquerque, New Mexico for about 3 years. It was during the downturn of 2008, and as a corporate meeting and event planner, I wasn't getting any business. And there was not much happening as far as meetings. So I was working at a winery, ran into a friend of mine who had a B&B, and she said, "Oh my God, you're perfect." And my only challenge was that I really had a challenge promoting Albuquerque because it wasn't me. There's no ocean in Albuquerque. There's no, and the
Okay.
Rio Grande is, I called it the Rio Puny. It was very small. So I applaud you because being a B&B person is not as easy and not as always fun as people want to think it is. But it is an interesting position to have. So.
Well, share with us what you're doing with real estate, though. If you have this.
Well, now you see my partner she left to go to Cleveland 2 years ago. We started looking at Cleveland because we have we're here in San Diego. I own San Diego Real Estate Investors, Impact Real Estate Investors Network. Um, because I can, and because the opportunity approached itself, it landed in my lap, and I went, "Oh, of course I can do that." So, knowing much more about the meeting planning and the event planning part of that than I knew about the real estate part, I just jumped in. And I did it for the purpose of, I had spent $20,000 getting a fire hose education by another guru, and it didn't take. At the end of it, I found out I knew really very little. Michelle had basically done about the same thing. And so she became my right hand. She was extremely um, helpful in getting me to get San Diego Impact up and going, building the club as we needed it, and doing audiovisual, doing all of my social media. And so when we decided to do this in Cleveland, it was kind of a stupid thing for me to do. I lost my person. I lost my person who did everything, and I lost my right arm. So, however, we're still looking at properties in Cleveland because the price point is obviously much nicer than it is in California. And hopefully we'll make some money coming up soon with things
Okay.
that we're looking at. And we will get her back into California once again. That's where her boys are. So I know that she wants to come back home. I have successfully run San Diego Impact for the last 4 years. We have about 60 members. It is a membership-based club, and it is basically my baby. So in the interim, during about 5 years ago, I decided I came from a psychology background in college. I really wanted to be of service. And I found NLP in bits and pieces and was fascinated with the model. And I went to another place to learn found out it really wasn't in alignment with who I am. It wasn't the way I wanted to learn, and it was just a little less segmented, or a little more segmented. And I came into the coaching world, into NLP through another company who were just amazing. And that's where I met these two lovely partners of mine now, Carla and Holly. And we have, we've taken our very vast and different and diverse backgrounds and put them together, and we are in very much alignment. So I've just joined them recently as the corporate liaison for AOVC, which is Aligned Optimal Vitality Coaching. They, as you can tell by their introductions, they are all over the place. I mean, they're all over. It's not just about vitality. It's not just about health. It's about taking our knowledge and our experience and sharing our values to make a bigger difference. We all come in with different strengths. Again, I have 30 years as a meeting and event planner, which goes through restaurants. I've owned 2 catering companies. I've been a massage therapist, and I was a chef on yachts. Carla was a chef. We have lots of places where Carla and I just kind of intersect. Music was my secondary, was my minor in college. And Holly is just an amazing, well-accomplished composer, conductor, and pianist. So whoever thought these 3 skill sets would come together and be something that we could complement one another? And we definitely do. So
you want to start with the beginning, like what is NLP? Because I know some
what is NLP? NLP is the study. Well, you wrote it out beautifully, but I'm going to condense it a little bit. It's the study of the language of the mind and excellence. It's really a study of excellence. It's a study of a subject or a client or a person, a human being's experiences, and how it affects their behaviors. The only way to shift a behavior is to know about the process that's formed during the behavior. So we've been trained to go directly to the root cause and change, whether it's limiting thoughts, negative emotions, negative energy, limiting decisions that we all have. And when we go through it, as Holly was reminding me this morning earlier, I have actually been coached by both of these women. I actually have coached Holly. We did that in our master practitioner course, which was 17 days long, about 10 hours a day. And when we did that, I realized how many limiting decisions I really had. And she reminded me of how what I said at the very end was, I know what limiting decisions I let go of, however, and I eliminated from my daily life that were causing me other patterns to appear in my life. What I didn't realize was that I walked away with not knowing exactly all of the negatives. I know all the positives that I took away from it. So that is the experience that I've had. And as I coach my clients, those are the things that I'm finding with my clients is like, oh my gosh, such an incredible relief when we're allowed to let go. And it's learning how to let go. We get past the deeper problem and not just the surface. Most coaches will coach to the conscious level and do a reframe, which is great, but it doesn't always last. We find that we have patterns that we are created. And unless we get into the deep core of what those patterns are, we cannot release it on an unconscious level. It's like any of you women who have been in your business have hired the same person over and over and over again, not the same person, but the same pattern of a person. And we wonder why we keep doing this. If you have a problem, problems keep showing up in your business and this was me through all of my other businesses, showing up where business money was coming in and it was going out just as quickly. It wasn't a logistical problem. It was a me problem. And so until I addressed that problem and got rid of some of my limiting decisions and my limiting beliefs about who I was unable to redirect and create the business that I really wanted. If it's showing up elsewhere, it's a pattern in your life. One of the things is how many of us have lost the same 10 pounds over and over and over again, only to repeat. Oh, Vicky, you smiled. Holly smiled. Regina smiled. Yes, there's many of us who have done that. And it's basically, we're doing it over and over and over again because we're not breaking the pattern. So let's start with perception. Perception is the ability to see or hear or become aware of something through our five senses. It's basically a way of interpreting. So we see things, we hear things, we touch, we feel things, we taste things, and I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there. And so the NLP model is one of the core concepts is how to build topics upon one another and help us understand how to apply them. So it helps us to understand, if we could understand that we all have these different visuals and we see things differently, we hear things differently, we speak differently, and where that all comes from. So it helps us to understand when we get to the other side, where our clients are coming from, where our families are coming from. Anyone else besides me have a challenge talking with your children or your grandchildren or friends? Just sometimes you just have this total disconnect, and it's because of how we interpret everything. We all interpret things differently. We see the pictures, we hear the sounds, we feel the things, we taste the things, and we smell the things. And then we have the self-talk that's constantly going. We have lots of this coming at us every single day, and sometimes it just seems a bit overwhelming. You can imagine that studies have indicated that we receive up to 11 million bits of information per second. That in itself is pretty overwhelming. And it's an approximate to give you an idea of how much our brain can actually take in. The theory tells us that it's between 134 to 154 bits per second of information. And that's based on our age, our experiences, our race, our gender, our values, our morals, our environment, our third grade teacher. It's from 0 to 7 is when we're imprinted and when we get all of these, but we're not, when we're young, we're not making conscious decisions. So if you would just visualize for me a small box of toothpicks. And if we took out all the toothpicks and you held them in your hand, let's say there's 150 toothpicks there. That's what you're getting out of 11 million bits, approximately 11 million bits of information. So holding on to these 134 to 154 pieces of toothpicks is like, well, Francis, did you get the same toothpicks I got out of that? Or Desiree, did you get the same toothpicks? We come from diverse backgrounds. I have no idea what you picked up out of that, or Desiree or Regina. We don't know what the other person is picking up. So the confusion then becomes even more because we don't think about this. So what we do when we get these toothpicks, we delete and we distort and we generalize the information that's come to us. Okay, I don't need that toothpick because it doesn't go along with my values. I don't need that toothpick because I know I'm going to distort this because she doesn't like me. So I'm not going to take that as good information. I'll delete something because, well, what specifically am I going to delete? I'm going to delete the person who, in my mind, I think she rejected me. It might not ever have been a rejection. It might have been she was having a bad morning and she didn't acknowledge me the way I wanted to be acknowledged. So there we have a disconnect, if you will. We generalize this information. So what would happen if I didn't do that? A really good way of looking at this is, and I think we've all heard this as an example. You have 10 people standing on a street corner, there's a car accident. The police come and they say, okay, Desiree, what happened? Francis, what happened? Sinway, what happened? And we get all of these different people. And do you think that anyone's going to match? No. They're not going to match because they're all taking in all of this information. That's 134 to 154 toothpicks, 134 to 154 toothpicks, and they're deleting and distorting and generalizing what it is that they've seen. They're doing that through their filters that are your age, your experiences. I saw, my gosh, I had a terrible, watched a terrible accident when I was a child. So you see things through a totally different lens. Your environment, your morals, what happened in that accident. So you can only try to piece together what has actually happened. And then there's the universal quantifiers that say, well, she always did this. He always does that. He never tells me he loves me. He always says, you look okay. So how do we perceive that in our body embodiment? So we do this through time, space, matter, and energy. That's one of the ways we look at this. We do it through language, how we talk to ourselves. We do it through the memory, filtering from the past, the decisions that we've made, our values, and our own unique personality, which really starts in the womb. According to our own perception, our awareness at the time through the experiences of the 5 senses and our self-talk. Think about the time that you smelled chocolate chip cookies. Fresh baked chocolate chip. Oh, big smile from Desiree. But what does that take you back to? For me, it takes me back to when my mom, when I was probably 6, 7 years old, my brother would come for the summertime and she would bake chocolate chip cookies. So when I smell that smell, even now, I go back to my mom coming out of the kitchen with chocolate chip cookies. Somebody else might say, Michelle, who goes into lots of houses and sees homes when they're all staged and ready to go. You might see some chocolate chip cookies sitting on the counter. That might be hers. What do you know about what that sense is doing to you? And that can be changed through the years. I was thinking about this when I was writing this out. And I thought one of the smells for me was a beautiful smell. I love fragrant flowers. And my favorite as I was growing up was a gardenia. And I remember, and when I smell a gardenia, I go back to my prom, my junior prom, and my boyfriend gave me a beautiful, I don't even know if they do them anymore, wrist bracelet, wrist corsage. Now I'm grown up, I look at flowers like this. Gardenia will still take me back, but what I'm attached to is the beauty of right now in our month that we just had, June and July, is night blooming jasmine, which is kind of the same fragrance. It's that sweet smell of summer. And so that's what it reminds me of. So as you change, as we get older, and as we change in our environments, as we change our experiences, those things can change. So perception is projection. So what we perceive is what we project out to everyone. And it might be different. I might project a little differently to Holly than I would to Desiree. But we're looking on, we're meeting on a different level. Holly is a coach and a friend and a mentor and a partner. Desiree is a dear friend. And so we take our projections and we come in a little bit differently. What we perceive is what we project. So always, if we can be aware of what we are projecting. And I like Holly. Yes, Holly, if you, I just lost it. I'm trying to watch the chat as much as I can. If you see it, you've got it. That's right. Oh, I love that. So we're all living different experiences. Um, you have two sisters who grew up in the same household. They're close to the same age. They have two very different experiences. The difference filters from the womb on when their personalities are starting to form. What happens gestationally in the womb can have, we've seen this with our clients, how it can have a traumatic effect, it can have a positive effect, it has some effect of what's going on, especially if the mother has had some trauma of her own during pregnancy. We come out with different personalities and our values at the unconscious level as little girls. So we are always looking towards the unconscious level, not the conscious level of how we're dealing. Not making any conscious decisions really until we're 7. Most of those are very unconscious decisions. We have generational trauma. There are millions of years of memory in our brains, and this is a scientific fact. And 95% of is our unconscious mind, and we deal with 3% of our conscious mind. Our filters are constantly changing with new information. You don't hear the same thing twice. You don't hear it the same. We don't read a book the second time and we glean different things out of it. Or if you've gone to see a speaker and you go back, say Tony Robbins, and you go back. Well, once he's gotten into you and you've already received all this information, your neurology has changed. You go back and see him again, you go, oh, I didn't hear him say that the last time, or I didn't hear that the last time, but your neurology has changed. So you've gone up a level, and what's going to be effective to you is going to be much different than the first time you heard him. Our filters are constantly changing, and how many limiting beliefs have kept you from moving or taking that plunge that you've wanted to take? Sometimes we don't even know. You can be very, very successful. Holly has 2 clients right now who are very successful writers, and both in a I'm going to say a stuck position. That's okay. And it's stopping them from moving forward. When writers have writer's block, when musicians have, they can't write another song. When we feel like I can't do that, what's the decision behind that? Where have we created that decision? And by honesty, I will tell you that I had one decision that just so didn't serve me, and very glad to have it in the distant past. But we have limiting beliefs that form our limiting decisions. When we go to the root core, we can release these negative thoughts and emotions around those limiting decisions and delete them forever. So I'm throwing a lot of information out there. And so I'm going to maybe just open it up and see if anyone has any questions or ideas where it's affected them, where they can see right now that it's had an impact on their lives.
Also too, Lynda, what we can do is that I just want to make sure that everyone, understands again what it is. And then you mentioned the 5 senses, which is really important for people to understand how they interpret different things, to the simple fact of when I was studying NLP for sales, that, it was utilized in how you approach people or how you close people, and being able to recognize those different modalities. Because if someone is more visual, then they're going to want to see it written out. They're going to want to see what you're talking about. Someone's more auditory, they're going to listen and over. Someone's more tactile, they're going to want to see it writing. They're going to highlight it. They're going to scratch it up. And I think it's really helpful to recognize, not only for your business and your sales, but obviously for the people that you're dealing with, whether it's your children or your partners and so forth, because you'll know the communication between different people. We have to communicate it in different ways. And when you talk about some of the professionals, their speeches, the information, like what Tony Robbins, all of them, the way they walk to the right, where they walk to the left of the stage, where they look up, down. Ladies, mute yourself if not on camera at the moment. So either you and or Holly can elaborate on just some of those basic things as far as what the difference are, the 5 different things are, and then how to recognize them, and then we can kind of go into more about how it impacts you personally, because that can change your life. You have a relationship that you just not, like you said, you're not getting along with. Maybe you're speaking and that person wants you to write it down, and you need to see it literally
Absolutely.
written down.
Absolutely.
And they would say yes to your offer if it was written down, they were able to see it. So could you and Holly just reiterate those 5 areas and then kind of talk about that for a minute?
I'll tell you something on a very personal level, and then I'm going to have either Holly or Carla jump in. For me, it was when I started building this business 4 years ago. My son doesn't know much about real estate and does not want to know. And his comes from a limiting decision and a limiting belief when in 2004, he and his wife bought their very first condo. They were buying it in San Diego. They were paying 700 and some odd $1,000 for this little 700 square foot place. At the same time, my ex and I were buying a home in Albuquerque that was on an acre of property, and we were spending $239,000 for it, or $213,000. So we're building a home, he's building a home, we both build a home. I don't lose my home in 2008. He loses his home and it goes to a short sale. He was devastated, absolutely devastated. He has now allowed that to become his belief. I can't do this. I don't want to. I will never buy another house. Instead, spends an enormous amount of money on rent. And because I'm in the real estate business, in that industry, this is where he is with me. No, I do not want to talk to you. I do not want to know anything about your business. So, and in the beginning, I took that as, well, how rude. How rude. This is about me. Why don't you want to know about me? Instead, I turned it all around. I got my stuff together and went back and started coming from him. I am also the emoter and the person who is very kinesthetic. I feel everything, and I'm, excuse me, very, very visual. He is not. He's he's just very straightforward. He doesn't feel. Kinesthetic is so far away from him. So when I changed it up and started coming to him from how he was seeing the world, his version of the world, we started having great conversations. He doesn't ask me about my business, but I do include him by saying, hey, I've got this project. Would you just take a look at it? He's got an economy background. I said, would you just take a look at it and see what you think? And I'd love to. And he goes, Mom, I don't do anything real estate. That doesn't make any difference. I'm asking for your opinion on what you think from a economical standpoint. So that is on a very personal level, how we can change, but it's through awareness. Again, it's through finding out where you are and where your target is, the person that you're wanting to make contact with. Holly, Carla, who wants to go?
Yeah, so let's go through them again, because some of the ladies maybe new to them. So let's go. Number one is a visual. I mean, let's kind of define that, and maybe Holly again or Carla can give an example of that, so that everybody really knows, what that would look like.
Sure, I would love to. It's so great to see you all here. Sure. It is, as Lynda, study of language and communication, and we all come from our 134. We come from our own perspective, and some of us are more visual, like I was seeing in the chat. Some of us are more kinesthetic, some of us are more auditory. And so especially when we're communicating with the people around us, other people's perspectives are just they're using. Yeah, I'd really like to know what that looks like. Oh, I hear what you're saying. I deep inside. You start you just having a different awareness of those things, because quite honestly, we communicate from our own perspective. So as we broaden that idea of just being aware of how other people are communicating those things, and because we have a saying, flexibility wins. And it's about becoming a more flexible communicator. Just again, that awareness of language changes everything. I have a teenage daughter, and she, through the work that I've done as a coach and also as a client, it's been really exciting to have her say to me, she goes, "Well, Mom, we don't really argue anymore." Um, and it's changed how I communicate in every place in my life. So all our lives, we've taught people around us by the language we use and how we show up. And as we grow in this personal growth journey, as we grow in our entrepreneurial journey, we are teaching people around us a new way to communicate with us, and it changes everything.
So Holly, some of it, unfortunately, you were broken up a little. So let's break it back down. Number
Sure.
one is visual, correct?
So
And one is visual. Okay. And so you gave an example of how that would sound for the words. Like I see, I see. So give it this. We broke up a little bit. Can you just give us for the visual a couple examples of what we would hear from somebody to be able to identify the fact that they are a visual person? And I know people have multiple. Some people are more than one.
I
So
right. Well, we all have the five senses, and Desiree, I'm chuckling because you're auditory. You keep using auditory words.
let's see. I think I'm visual.
Well, you're both. We can be predominantly one, but it doesn't mean that we're not keen into the others. So if it was a visual person and who's very visual, I would say you've got to see what I'm doing. When you look at it, you're going to uh, see and look. Those are all the visual things. If I and you feel it, and the person's going to kind of check out and not pay attention. So it's all the see it, you're going to perceive it, you can even go, you can know it, but those are the words that they're going to pay. We
Okay.
all have strategies in our communication, and the more we key into other people's strategies, the more flexible we are.
All right. So the number two would be.
Um, you've got to hear this. This is amazing. When you hear it, you're going to be able to uh, um, know everything as you're hearing it, as your the sound, phrases that we're used to hearing, like it's going to be like a bell. It's just going to ring true with you. And all of those are our happy things. There's kinesthetic, when you feel this deep inside, when you just know it. I'm very kinesthetic for me. So we've got all. Now, most people are not as. It's more of the seeing, the hearing, the feeling. Those tend to be the ones that dominate the most. And then for some people, if you use the olfactory, so it's going to smell like success. Or that song, it smells like Teen Spirit. Who knows what that means? But for somebody who's predominant in olfactory, they're going to key right into that and really connect with that. Um, Connect is a kinesthetic. So it's a lot of the ways we have before.
What about, what was the fifth one? I'm sorry. I don't know if I heard it or the other ladies heard.
Let's
Ladies,
see.
let me know if you're able to hear Holly.
Sure, I can hear you. Gustatory is the other one, which is taste. So you can when you taste, when you like I say, that one's not as dominant, so we don't hear that one as much. But the one besides our five senses, the other one that we don't pay attention to enough is our self-talk.
Mm.
And that is a huge one. So we can use all of these great words with the senses, but also paying attention to what we're saying to ourselves. becomes it's just as strong as the other things. So when you're in the middle of a conversation and maybe you don't say what you think is, what does that voice inside say to you?
So I think that has a lot to do with what Linda was talking about, that perception, that possession. So, but the projection,
Mm-hmm.
being what you're projecting, and the reason why you project it, whether you're utilizing the different senses or not, because
Sure.
that's probably the most prominent, I think, for most people, is that self-talk, because that is how we project ourselves, and that's how we, so ladies, carry on. All right, so now we got the basics done. There's another way, like how can these ladies apply it? I know there's so many ways of applying it, but just to reiterate that besides your personal life, Linda shared her personal life, in your relationships, but even in your business. Again, I was just so surprised of how many speakers, professional speakers, really did their sales, by design. I mean, their presentations, their eye movements, their body movements. I don't know if that's part of it, but I know that it was by design. It wasn't they just don't get up, sit there and speak. They're speaking to the different types of people in the audience. And that's one of the programs that we do. It's called the Power of Seven, and it's the multimedia marketing. And I use the basis that people are going to acknowledge or enroll at a different level. So we utilize the podcast for those who want to hear it over and over again. We utilize the written word, so the people that want to see it and write it and highlight it. We utilize the video for those who want to see and connect with you personally in that way. I get a better know, like, and trust factor. And we utilize the different mediums so that we can connect with as many people as possible. The same message, but being connect with as many people as possible, so that they're able to get the enrollment that they want. So can you ladies elaborate on that, how you've seen it and how you project it? And then Linda, we have a few talking points as well. I don't want to take you off track.
Well, I would add one more thing, because I've been a serial entrepreneur, and before I became a coach and before NLP, my enrolling rate was probably 3 to 5%, which isn't great. Well, usually most people, and I was like 3 to 5%. So after becoming a coach and after all the training that I've gone through as an entrepreneur, my enrollment is 47 to 50% now, and beyond that. So as it's a very tangible skill, because when you are a more flexible communicator, you can connect with people in a very genuine way, and a very deep way, and the results speak for themselves, whether it's a client or whether it's having a conversation with my daughter.
Fantastic. And I think that's where the value is. That's where we're at right now. It's just wanting to change our lives in that way. And even now, I think there's even more, we need to pay attention to it, because people are in such a different state than they were 2 years ago. Post pandemic, they were speaking about even why they're having so many disruptions on the airplanes, because of people's psyche and their nervousness, and their stress levels are much higher than they were prior to. There's so many different rules and regulations, and the whole process has become more tedious and more taxing as far as the mask and the concerns and so forth. So because of that, they're acting out more. So I think now it's even more important for us to find out for ourselves, get reached back into, find out what works for us, and then be even more sensitive. Like you said, listen to the words, listen to the actions of our potential client or friend or partner, so that we can be able to, to be able to accomplish more. So what are your thoughts, Linda? So you're back on track? Did I take you off the track? I just really want to cover the basics. I just think it's such a fascinating,
No, there's so many layers deep, and we can level up and level up and level up. It's like you were just saying, I think that was a really good example of the stress and the uncertainty that we've all faced in this last 18 months, and now going into possibly a new area of, what do we do now? I just had a huge event cancel on me that was a very large, very, very large event 1,500, 2,000 people. And just because of the situation, the event was canceled, and all events for this corporation are canceled through the end of the year. So as we go through this, and again, it's the thought process, and it's allowing ourselves not to judge and accept the other person's version of the world. And for me, with the NLP, this is a really great place to utilize this. Is we can let it become political. We can let it become, oh, you just don't care about anybody else because you're not getting vaccinated. Or, oh my God, you're really going to get vaccinated from another person. So we all have, from all of these filters and all of these 134 toothpicks that come in, we all have this information. How we choose to assimilate it, or how we do assimilate it, I don't know that it's a conscious choice. It is really done on an unconscious level, because it's coming from our backgrounds. It's coming from our experiences. It's coming from how old we are. I'm older, so I'm going to look at this through a different set of glasses than somebody who's much younger. We are, whether it's race, whether it's culture, whether it's whatever area is coming in and playing into this, we need to be cognizant of everybody is doing we can only hope that everyone is doing their very best. And it's not the person who's bad, possibly the behavior is bad, but give way to the other person's version of the world. If you respect the other person's version of the world, which is a perception and a projection, if I put that out there, it's going to come back to me. I'm not making judgments on other people right now. It's how does that suit me? How does that serve me? It's not serving any of us, rather than to get on an airplane and punch a flight attendant out because she's doing her job. So I think right there is a really good example of how we become aware of our own beliefs, our own thoughts, our limiting thoughts, our negative emotions, our negative decisions. If you're going to go get on an airplane right now and you are stressed out and you have all these negative thoughts going on, what are you going to project when you get on the plane? So if we look at all of our own judgments and how we're judging others, normally it's because it's a mirror image and we're judging ourselves somewhere along that line.
I want to just ditto that before we go into the next. Is that the whole, like you said, the perception. I think it's really important for us to automatically extend an extremely, extend a lot more grace to everyone, because even as far as, the pandemic, some people thought it was a hoax, but that people that had a close loved one die from it, did not think of it as a hoax. People got the vaccination, people think it's like, it's not necessary. A person who has been impacted by it tragically thinks it's very necessary. So our positions are, as women, with business women, we just have to offer a lot, like you said, of unconditional grace.
Yes.
To whoever we're dealing with, allowing them the freedom and the flexibility to communicate the way they communicate, because of the perception that they have right now. And maybe that will change over time. So you don't only study or practice NLP, there's also other modalities. And one of them I'm really fascinated about is timeline therapy. Do you feel comfortable sharing a little bit about that? Because I've seen it work.
Oh, it's amazing. It is amazing.
I've seen people that don't come to certain events, come to certain events, there was one person that wouldn't come to our Valentine's event at all, ever, for like 5 or 6 years, because she had a very negative thought about love and relationships, and because of her parents who, had abuse from her parents and never been married, never, whatever. And then all of a sudden she did the timeline therapy, she did that, whatever. And she comes every month, but she didn't come this month. And we always sell her table. She had a table out. She's not going to be here because it's February. All of a sudden she shows up this February. Like, what are you doing here? You're never here on February. She says, oh, I just had timeline therapy. I've been studying this and this and this, and I'm fine, I'm good. So I've seen it happen over and over again. Share with the ladies that are not familiar with it, because there are a lot of people who it's impacting their lives as an adult. the things that, these one incidents, they've taken it, whether it's, a fear of a needle, fear of heights, fear of whatever it is, they're taking these incidents and it's directing the rest of their lives. And they don't know that that could possibly change.
It's amazing. As someone who works with timeline therapy and someone who has gone through timeline therapy, I've gone through both with Carla and Holly, to eliminate a fear or a significant event in your life that has continually plagued you. To walk away from it and go, oh, I know it happened, but I don't have any of the negative emotions around, negative thoughts or emotions around that particular event. I was literally in therapy, just an event that happened to me. I was 12 and I carried it with me. I did everything that I could on a very, I've done EMDR and I love psychology and I loved my therapist. I've been through it, but there was something that I wasn't getting, and it was at that root, getting to that root cause. And to be honest with you, I couldn't tell you what it is. I can tell you some of the great learnings only because I got the learnings given back to me, because that's what we want to take away. Is we want to take away kind of like being the eternal optimist. For every bad thing there's something good in there, and if we find the good and the learnings out of the really significant experience, all we can do is learn from it and grow from it. So we all say in business, we say we can fail, but it's not failure, it's only feedback, right? We don't fail, we just have feedback. So basically this is the same thing. It's just so many of us get to a point where it's like, oh, that's not important. It is important. If it's still bugging you and it's still in the back of your head, it's worth addressing. Carla, would you take this and go a little bit further with timeline therapy?
Yes.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
What it is and how it happens, Carla.
Yeah, absolutely. So timeline therapy, it's when the conscious mind meets with the unconscious mind, is the best way I can explain it. And it's a visualization, almost a meditation, partly hypnosis. So it's really a mix of different modalities. And what it does is we guide people to go through the visualization to the right and correct core or root cause. So a lot of my clients have done timeline therapy and they're like, I don't understand. I did the timeline therapy. Why didn't it work? Like, no, the timeline therapy works. Your coach didn't actually get you to the root core cause of the issue. So you can do timeline therapy on a very light event that you think is causing the problem, yet that wasn't the core. The core was way before that. So what it does is the unconscious mind sees an event and it sees the event as a flat surface, right? And so it decides, oh, this is the event, therefore I take it to mean I'm not this and I'm unworthy and I'm this and I'm that, blah, 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 right? Whatever your unconscious mind decided to take meaning from that event. Well, while the process of timeline therapy, when we find the root cause, we actually go through a holographic process where you don't see just the flat event and its meaning. You're actually seeing the whole event as a whole, and you don't even have to know what the event was. So I had blocks and chunks of memories that I still don't want to know what they were. my unconscious mind decided to protect me from whatever those were, but I knew there were traumas. I knew there were negative emotions, deep negative emotions. And I knew there were patterns coming from there after doing a session of deep coaching. There were things in there that I knew there were blocks. They were almost like walls. Like I kept trying to do something and I'd hit a wall, and I kept trying to do something else and I hit a wall, and I kept trying to do something else in a different area of life, and I'd hit a wall or a block. And I knew that's where it was coming from. I just didn't know what it was. So my coach guided me through timeline therapy, never had to look at the event, never had to know even what it was. And through all the processes, we were able to release all the negative emotions. I no longer have that block in any area. And we were able to release everything that came from it without even going into the event. So we've been able to release all kinds of sexual traumas, childhood abuse. I've been able to release several of my clients from addiction. And what we're really doing, we're releasing the core negative emotions and beliefs that they decided very early on that had created these patterns and behaviors in their lives. And if we can do that and I can do that for a meth addict of 60 years, his whole life he was a meth addict. We were able to release it in 6 months. I had a cocaine addict who, I mean, he did like ridiculous amounts a day, and he was on his way out, and we were able to release that in 8 months. And it's not that we're releasing the addiction. It's not about that, because we're not psychotherapists. We're not addiction specialists. We were able to release childhood trauma doing timeline therapy, and able to release the negative emotions from it. And that was causing all the behavior, right? The symptoms, the symptomology. So we were able to do that with all the modalities that we do now. So it's really a process of hypnosis with visualization. It's a very light trance. And we go as far as the person and the client is safe to go, is feeling secure and safe to go there. We do as much as possible to clear out everything that we can. And then that's when we do cleanup work after that with other modalities.
You know, and to me, it's just absolutely so amazing, the fact that I've heard in so many instances, and again, I personally know women in our community who have had it, and it has worked. It's worked for their children, it's worked for their husbands, and so forth. The fact, I say, if it works, then why doesn't everybody know about it? Why doesn't everybody do it? You know,
that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to spread the word.
It just like blows me away. It's like we have our Valentine's event in February, and there was so many women that have blossomed around relationships, and they're not in relationships, men and women. They were not in relationships, and not in loving relationships, and all these people could be living happily ever after if they did it. And again, I've seen it. It's not it's like a people think of it as a woo-woo. I've seen it, and I've seen
yeah. And there's several things that happen. There's several things because they come in with fear.
World, if this is possible,
right? Yeah, it's so powerful, and I totally understand. I mean, I was a client first before I even went into this type of coaching, because I was doing sales and consulting, and I've been an entrepreneur for a decade, and I've always known that there was something there. There's something there. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready to level up. I'm about growth. I'm about progress. Let's get to the next level. And then this type of coaching came into my life. And 20 minutes into my first timeline therapy, I was like, what is this work? Why isn't everyone doing this? I can't believe she found my block in 20 minutes. Where are these people? Why aren't, because I've had coaches, many coaches, some bad, some worse, some okay, some good, right? They do the conscious reframe, which is great. Yet I went through 20 years of conscious reframe. There's only so much you can do. And I knew there was more. Like, there's got to be more. This can't be the most I can do. Like, this is not my best performance that I could, this is not my best me I could possibly be. And so then I found this coaching because I asked for it. I'm like, I need this growth. I want more. And then it came into my life, and it's scary. It's scary to go into uncertainty. It's scary. People come with a lot of fear of, this is all I know. What's on the other side? And so we help them and coach them through it, because I understand, like, it's so much better to just be where you're safe in your little cave. Like, no, I'm good here. Like, this is what's been getting me here this whole time. I've been surviving this whole time. And that's what the brain does. It's not meant for growth and uncertainty and to break through fears. It's meant to keep you safe in a nice little cave, away from the tigers and the stormy weather. And that's what the unconscious mind is meant to do. It's meant to protect and keep you safe. Yet once these patterns keep showing up in our lives where we're just unhappy and underlying unhappy, right? Because it's not like an unhappiness that just comes through. It's an unhappiness that's underlying. Like, I'm safe, but I'm not fully happy. I'm not fully optimal. I'm not fully vital.
The thing is that I think what you hit on the head is that people say, okay, this happened when I was a child, you know, I fell down or this like that, and I'm okay with it. It's not impacting my life. I'm able to survive, and so what's the big deal? And so they go through year after year saying, okay, I just don't like this. I don't like animals, or I don't like whatever, because a dog bit me when I was young, and it's okay. I don't need to have a dog in my life. So I can live and survive without that. But what they don't know is what they don't know.
Absolutely.
They don't
Absolutely.
know how that one thought, that one fear, whether it's like in a height or a dog or a needle or whatever, how it's impacting so much of their life.
Yeah.
And without that, it's like taking a lid off of a jar of bubbles. You know, bubbles, just releasing the bubbles free, and but they don't see that it's just been closed. They don't need those bubbles. It is not that important. We can all live without bubbles, but but this being taking that off and just seeing, experiencing that, they miss that experience. Period.
They don't know it's there. They
They
don't know that the experience is there for them to enjoy.
okay, because we're doing okay. We're all here. We're all healthy. We're happy.
I'm surviving. I'm good. I'm content. Like, well, I mean,
Enough
yeah,
money, maybe not all the money that I could be making if if I was able to release whatever block it is, because again, why not make more so you can even give it back to others if you don't need it. I'm as healthy as can be. I've got, I'm in perfect shape, but why not? Maybe we're not. Maybe why not be in better shape? Why not have better relationships? Just why not? And so that's why I really find it so valuable and important. And that's just one modality. But again, I've seen it work, and I know it works not only for yourself. If you're good, then what about for some other people in your life? Maybe you
exactly.
have a child or a teenager or a partner that's struggling with something that maybe could benefit from it. But it's just really, really hard to be able to get people to that point where they can acknowledge one, say yes, raise your hand to, there's more, on it, and I can do more, I can be more. Like you said, I just knew there was more. Some people are not that passionate about it, but thank goodness that you were. And then once
Yeah.
you get there, it's like, oh my gosh, like all this time I could have been living all these, experiencing all these different things because I just limited. So that's that. What else? What else is on your agenda, Linda? Because I just had to incorporate that because I just find it so.
No, I'm very glad you did. Thank you, Carla. She's so good at explaining it. I go back to my visualization of how it felt, and when I am doing it with a client, I to see the after effect and know that they're like, whoa, what just happened? And not having to go into the event itself. They said that you said it perfectly, woo woo. And we say it a lot when we're in master practitioner course. There's a lot of woo woo going on, but it is combining the modalities and having them fit so well. And there's even more. There's even more after that.
So what was next on our checklist? I don't have it. I went with the
You know
lady.
what? I left it in the. I was. I left it in the other room as well. Hold on.
Okay, that's all right. I can get it. So Holly and Carla, based on, okay, these are beautiful business women. We're going to open the conversation up very shortly so they can share with you where they're at and so forth. What else would you say that you found valuable for women in business, mothers, wives? What else is valuable for us that you do see and have shared?
I think we don't. Uh, what you said was actually so true. What we don't know is what we don't know. There was a study of mice, and they pumped in a nice floral scent, and electrocuted them. I mean, they gave them electric shocks. They so the mice are experiencing pain, in these electric shocks. That generation of mice had mice, and with the next generation, they pumped in that same floral scent, and the mice are jumping around. No, they're not. That generation, they had mice. Same reaction. It was a really interesting study because it was 3 generations. It wasn't until the 4th generation that these mice were not reacting to something that they weren't even experiencing. It was generational. So I think there are some, and of course, Carla and Lynda and I have all experienced this as clients and as practitioners, when we are supporting clients with what their root causes are, because sometimes it's something that happened very early on in their life, or sometimes it's generational, and we've had things that have been passed down to us and we don't even know it. So that's been a really powerful powerful aspect of what we do in timeline therapy. And it's also, I put it in the chat, it's also science, it's quantum physics. So when we release things, we're going to the place before it existed. And then we're blowing out those negative neural connections, and we're creating positive connections. And when a client comes, when you finish that session and you say, well, how do you feel about that limiting decision? They'll say, what limiting decision?
That'd be music to my ears.
Exactly, exactly. It is the most amazing, crazy thing, and it does sound very woo-woo, but it's science, because it literally those negative neural connections are not there anymore, which I
And
think is
does
so
it
powerful.
take, does it take usually a long time, or is it a quick fix, or it just depends on what the
It is.
problem is?
Well, what Carla was saying was so accurate. And this is what we do, we get people down to their core issue, their root cause, release from there. It's quick, it's immediate. I went through years of therapy and counseling and thought I had to kind of just live with where things were and do the best I could. And through this work, 20 minutes, I released a major trauma from my childhood that had absolutely colored everything in my whole life through that filter. And through timeline therapy, it was quick, it was easy, but it was because we got down to the root and the core.
And just on a logistical point, is it expensive? What kind of investments should someone be prepared to invest? Some people who they may think I can't do it because it's going to be extremely expensive, and I know that it will vary, and I know the rates will just give us a starting point, and then obviously it depends on how much you're going to need to where it would go. But for as little as, or possibly as little as, what would someone have to budget?
Well, that's a great question. What we do is what we call a full breakthrough in an area of life. You can do smaller sessions, but to get an immediate shift, the full breakthrough is like 10 to 12 hours. I know that we have a link for anybody who wants to talk to us about that, so that we can work with you, because we're all coming from different places, and it's easy to say not much. But I have to say that I was asking one of my questions, and I said, what would you say to people who are concerned about the financial investment? Because a full breakthrough is, it's not like getting a cup of coffee at Starbucks. Um, and she kind of laughed, and she said, that was me. I worried about it, but having experienced it, she said, it's priceless. She said, my life looks totally different. And I've experienced that myself as a client. So full breakthrough in an area of life is $5,000 with our company. And we also work with people where they are. So I've had people who said, well, that's not where I am right now. And there are some other options that we can do to support you to get to where doing on all levels, because we want this to be ecological and a win-win-win. This is about making it work for each client. Carl,
Absolutely.
you want to chime in on that, if there's anything?
Yeah, I mean, we want to make it affordable for everyone. Because when I first started, I was 70 grand in debt. And my first breakthrough was $5,000, which I didn't know how I was going to do it. I was just like, here's the car, here's my last credit card. This was many years ago. And then obviously, and within a year, I cleared out that debt. Don't ask me how that happened. I just broke through my things, worked with my coach, and it just happened. So we try to make it affordable. We do have a group session, and it's $500 a month. So we want to make it accessible to everyone, because we know that not everyone can afford a $5,000 breakthrough, even if, not even on a credit card, right? So it can vary very much from if you want an hour session, from 150 for an hour session, to a group breakthrough, which is much easier because you get the full group experience for a month and you get way more hours. So that can be around $500 a month.
Great.
And the group experience is you're not telling your deep dark secrets to anybody. We don't need to know the story behind it. We just need to know that where you're going and what it was, what your issue is, what your and as long as we're down to the root core issue, then we can help.
So somebody can experience the same results if necessary, if they do a group as they can individually. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.